Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our session on Agile and PMBOK Guide 6th edition. You might be aware that PMI has launched a PMBOK Guide, which is primarily a reference for PMP exam. PMP exam will be based on PMBOK Guide 26th March onwards. And PMBOK Guide also reflects trend in project management. PMI keep doing regular role alignment study where they study what is happening in project management area, and when they see a stable trend, when they find that some practices are becoming matured and some practices are getting frequently used in many contexts, they start including it in PMBOK Guide. And the PMI study shows that agile practice is becoming mature now, and that is the reason they have introduced good amount of agile based content in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. The adaptive life cycle was already there in the previous PMBOK guides as well. We have been talking about iterative, incremental and adaptive way of doing development in PMBOK Guide 5th edition as well, and before that as well. But PMBOK Guide 6th edition is a far way forward. Here we see the impact of agile getting discussed in each and every knowledge area, even when we get into the processes that Guide talks about in adaptive life cycle. This process may have to be done in a different way. So a little bit about me. So I am a founder of a company named Eisenbridge. We are PMI registered education provider. So I am sharing this so that you can hear me authentically about PMBOK Guide. So we are into project management. I am by myself PMP certified, and I have been training people on project management for last 6 years. Before that, I was doing project and program management at various scales. And interestingly, I and my organization is very much into agile based education as well. So that is kind of a rare combination where an institution as well as an individual teaching PMI based concepts along with agile based approaches as well as methods. So you see that nice combination in our content where it is project management and agile. So goal of today's session is that I will do my effort to give you an overview of agile based flavor in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So most of the content is based on what is coming explicitly in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Yeah, there are some addition which I am making on the basis of my agile and project management knowledge at some places to make the things more and more clear. But I would say 90% of the content which I am sharing today is directly coming from PMBOK Guide 6th edition. And why I'm stressing on this particular coverage is you will see how much depth agile is discussed in the new PMBOK Guide. So this is how we are trying to run the session for today. We will spend some time in introduction, primarily running 2 polls where we know who all are here so that we can understand how to run this particular session going forward. My goal is that I cover the core content in 40 minutes time. So we do get 10 minutes and 5-minute contingency reserve kind of stuff for taking off question and answers. So this is how we intend to do. Let's see how things appears. As something comes in your mind, whatever question comes in your mind, you can post it in your question box. You do have a facility in your panel, and I will look at it towards the end. So I am not looking at your questions right now, since we have good number of audience today, say more than 100 plus, and it's very difficult to remain engaged on one-to-one question basis. If something is not covered here, we will definitely can answer them in our forum or at other channels. So keep posting your questions. Looking at the time box, I will do my best to answer most of it. So as usual, we run some polls to understand who are here, and even this is a good exercise for you to know who are your fellow participants. So 2 questions. First one is going live now, primarily asking you to share where do you stand in your PMP journey. Yes, so here I share the results because this is also an important input for you so you can understand who are your fellow participants. I see 47% certified professionals attending this particular session, 32% who are exploring doing PMP soon, and there is a good number of percentage who are not exploring PMP certification. They just want to know what is there in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Okay, so another poll. So this is a nice information. The second poll is all about how much you are aware about Agile. Okay, so I close the poll and share with you what I see here, so you also know what is happening. So we have a good number of participants coming from Agile Knowledge. They are already working in Agile, or they consider themselves as an Agile expert. Good. So let's get started. Now, before I get into PMBOK Guide and look at Agile flavor to it, I thought that it would be better to look at predictive lifecycle and adaptive lifecycle from a definition point of view, and generate and develop some common understanding of what is Agile or what is adaptive lifecycle. So as we see things in our predictive lifecycle, the first graph which I'm trying to plot here, we do a lot of planning in the beginning of the project. So the predictive lifecycle, the x-axis is a time horizon. So you can see that how time is passing, and the y-axis is more about the effort we spent. So in predictive lifecycle, we spend a lot of effort in planning in the early stage of project, and then we move towards execution, and then we keep refining planning by way of taking care of change requests, taking care of issues. Some level of planning keeps happening, or replanning keeps happening even in a predictive life cycle, but majority of planning happens in the beginning. In adaptive life cycle, the planning is a continuous process. We don't spend the time, like too much planning, time in too much planning in the beginning of the project. The planning is spread across the complete project duration, so as the executing related work is spread across the complete project duration. Now you may wonder why somebody should do it like this. The idea is simple. If you can really predict your requirement, if you can really predict your customer behavior, if you can really predict your technology, if you can really predict your development team's productivity and their skills, you can use predictive lifecycle, because everything is more or less estimatable. And you have maybe 5-10% error will be always there, because you are working on a project. It's not operations. It's not manufacturing that everything is so planned that everything will come under control range. But with a 10% to 20% variance, you can predict requirement, cost, time estimates, productivity, and all those variables, customer expectation. Then it makes perfect sense to do a detailed requirement analysis, to do a detailed planning in the beginning, have a baseline project management plan, and after that you can bring lots of people so they can execute the work, and finally you can deliver the thing to the customers, to the stakeholders. Predictive lifecycle, that is the reason predictive lifecycle works good where the industry is matured, where the data is available, so where things are really estimatable. When we work in a very frequently changing environment, the customer expectations are changing very frequently, the technology is moving very frequently, the team productivity is changing frequently, because tools and technologies are changing very frequently. In those contexts, it doesn't make sense to do planning in the beginning, because we know that within a month we need to do such a big replanning that all the plan which we are making in the previous month is going to change. In those kind of environment, we move towards an adaptive life cycle where planning and executing goes hand in hand. We may have a long-term roadmap, but the detailing keeps happening in a small iterations, in a small project durations. And that is how the basic difference is. Now, it is not about which one is good, which one is bad. The idea is which one is needed in your context. If you are, if I take an example of a restaurant, if you are making some dish which is a regular part of your menu, you can go with the predictive life cycle. So you are a restaurant selling burgers, all the burgers may get prepared using predictive life cycle because you have been doing it for a while. Now, if you want to make some new recipe, you may want to make a new role which you have never done it, and the role compositions are also not clear. You are right now making a recipe. And once the recipe will become mature, it may become predictive. But the preparation of recipe has to be an adaptive life cycle because you need to keep changing as the customer behavior, customer feedback keeps coming in. So we need to see, are we making a standard thing more, or we are making too much creative or recipe kind of work, then we go towards adaptive life cycle. So this is like at a top level, from predictive and adaptive life cycle, we can get a feeling of agile. The another major difference, which is again related with the previous slide, is that when we go with the predictive life cycle, we have detailed information about how things needs to be done. We focus on optimization. We focus on doing things in a one time, in a one phase. So since things are predictable, in a one phase, you do all the work related to that particular phase, but it does not produce the finished product because finished product will come towards the end. So in between, we generate a lot of engineering artifact, we generate a lot of documents, but the real working product comes towards the end. And that is the nature of a predictive life cycle because we work on a phased approaches. Whereas in adaptive life cycle, since we are doing planning and executing together, we keep producing deliverable. The deliverable will keep getting incremented, or you can think it will keep getting extended with passes of time. But frequently, you will see a small version of the future deliverable because that is needed so that people can understand how they need to change this particular deliverable to meet their stakeholder expectation. So in predictive life cycle, we keep producing consumable, learnable, evaluatable deliverables throughout the project life cycle. We keep validating our assumptions using deliverable. And why are we doing it? Because we are not sure what has to come at the end. In predictive life cycle, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't have to take, if I'm selling a restaurant, if I'm preparing a burger, which is part of my menu, it doesn't make sense to give a bite of a burger to my customer and ask him, do you like this burger so I can ship you the whole burger? It doesn't make sense because you have been giving the burgers all the time, 1,000 burgers in a day. You just deliver it. You don't ask that is it good or bad. You just deliver it. Whereas when you are creating a new recipe, you are not sure. So you will give a burger and says, is it good or do I need to put more salt in it? And then you get a feedback. They tell that, okay, this was good, but it was a bit more spicy. Maybe next time you need to create a burger with lesser spice. Okay, you get a feedback, you change your burger till the time you reach to a new recipe. So when you are creating a new recipe, these evaluatable, consumable products, deliverables are needed. And that is why adaptive lifecycle produces continuous deliverables. So this is the only thing I wanted to present before I jump into the 10 knowledge area of PMBOK Guide 6th edition and look into them from agile perspective. In my view, the adaptive and predictive life cycle can be understood at a top level using these two examples. Again, it's an overview. We need to focus on what we can get in 1 hour. Okay, so let's get into the knowledge areas. So project integration management, people who are not yet aware of PMBOK thing, PMBOK has various specialized knowledge areas, and these knowledge areas are usually helpful for project managers. So now why I use the word usually? A project management may need various skills and various knowledges depending upon the type of domain, type of industry the person is working in. But as per study which is done frequently by PMI, there are some areas which are generally seen useful, and those areas are becoming knowledge areas in a PMBOK guide. so that most of the project manager can take help from it and they can add more to it when they start working on their project. And first knowledge area has a sequence. So the PMBOK guide has 10 knowledge areas. The sixth edition has 10 knowledge areas. The fifth also had the same 10. And the first knowledge area as per their sequence is called project integration management. And the way PMBOK defines it, it includes the processes and activities which identify, define, combine, unify, and coordinate the various processes and project management activities. So in a simple word, you can see is that project integration management is something like a big integration hub, and it works with remaining knowledge areas so that ultimately everything get come into the on the same page. So it's like I am doing costing, I am doing time planning, I am doing scope planning, but everything has to get integrated. The scope, time, cost, everything finally should get integrated so that it can achieve the project objective. So project integration management does that integration related work, or I would say that project integration management keeps the integration related processes which binds the remaining knowledge area in a one thread in order to deliver project objectives. So it has processes which primarily too much influenced by project life cycle. So I would say the project life cycle impacts the most the project integration management, because project integration management is too much dependent on are you going early planning or are you going continuous planning. So let's see what are the things differ from predictive and adaptive, or how agile is discussed. So left side I'm taking agile, and the right side is generic predictive life cycle, or the traditional way of doing things. So first thing which is clear in project integration management is agile based approaches believes in progressive planning by team. The by team is also important thing. So I spoke about doing progressive planning in my previous slides, but unlike the traditional approaches or predictive life cycle approaches, where we believe project manager has all the information and he can do a detailed planning. In fast changing worlds, we believe one person may not have all the information because situations are changing very frequently. So we believe in doing progressive planning, and the team who is engaged in doing that work is the one who is doing this particular planning. So progressive planning by project team is something, one of the characteristics of agile based approach. Participative decision making. So rather than project manager deciding this is risk, this is its ranking, this is an estimate, this is the approach we have to take, or he leads the decision making process, the complete adaptive life cycle believes in participative decision making. And again, it is primarily an economical reason, because things are changing so much. One person deciding will definitely make all of other fail. So it's better to make everybody accountable for the decision, and they will only be accountable when they are part of the decision making process. So participative decision making. Responding to change over following the plan. This is again coming from Agile Manifesto statement as well. So project integration management has a process called integrated change management, which primarily focuses on how the change request should be handled. So when we go in a predictive life cycle, we believe that we can predict the requirement, customer need, customer expectation early in the project. Since we have that data, since we have that skill to predict early, we also ensure that people should not spoil the plan as we go forward, and we put a very stringent change management process to evaluate each and every upcoming change so that we don't derail our project. And that is what we believe in traditional or predictive life cycle by following the plan, and which is very right for that particular context. But when we are not clear about the requirement, when we are not clear about customer behavior, we are creating a recipe, and if that time we put such a stringent change management process, we are definitely going to fail. So in an adaptive life cycle, our process has to be something so flexible so it welcomes the change. It responds to the change rather than keep project and project team always aligned to the plan. So in adaptive life cycle, we trust the plan least. We trust more the feedbacks. We trust more the result which are coming from real execution, the result which are coming from the deliverables which we are showing to the customer. So it believes in responding to change. The another difference, as we see in this particular knowledge management area, is in predictive life cycle or non-agile approaches, we monitor things by doing variance analysis, by doing detailed report. That this was expected in the plan and this was the actual. Because we believe in plan too much, we believe the plan was right. When we come into adaptive life cycle, we don't trust the plan. We monitor things based on incremental delivery. We look at the role which is coming out, and we look at the feedback which are coming out from the customers, from the stakeholders, and that is what the monitoring is about. So we look at intermediate deliverables which are coming, which are used for customer feedbacks, which can be consumed by the customer as a primarily monitoring tool rather than the reports and variance analysis. And as you can see, all this all can happen when we have a self-organizing team. When team is empowered, team has a authority to make their decision related to the type of work, how approach they want to take to solve the problem. So it's a self-organizing team over detailed instruction provided by the project manager. So our predictive life cycle works where each and every step is very much elaborated in our project schedule, project management plan, and execution is just execution of those steps. Whereas adaptive life cycle believes in team will plan, and team is authorized to make planning at the estimate. So we don't have to give them a detailed instruction. They are the one who will create detailed instruction for themselves. And that is what the self-organizing team is about. The another focus about project integration management as well as adaptive life cycle, and these focus may vary from one knowledge area to another knowledge area and get repeated again and again. The project charter, the way we write a project charter, the way we look at a project management plan, the way we create a key performance indicators in our project management plan as well as the project charters are more focused towards value rather than towards scope. Now, what is the difference? So what is the goal of the project? Most usually the project is always supported by a business case. We want to do something so that we can achieve some business objective. And in order to achieve that business objective, we have this statement of work. Now, many times in predictive life cycle, we become too much focused on statement of work because we believe that the way of driving statement of work from value is quite predictable. So if you only focus on statement of work and deliver it efficiently, the value will come out. But in adaptive life cycle, this not necessarily be true. So we don't trust too much the statement of work which is coming out because it will keep evolving. We focus more on the business goals, the value which this project has to be delivered. So the business result, the business value are more focused than scope delivery. Scope may get added and removed, but the business value is something which is focused. So this is how at a top level you can see the project integration management changing this in agile based approach, and PMBOK 100% endorsed this approach or this way of doing project integration management if you are using agile based approach. Project scope management now. And this is something like a process which includes processes required to ensure that project includes all the work required and only the work required to complete the project successfully. This is the overall goal of a project scope management. Now, as we see in our previous slides, here we are doing progressive planning and progressive discovery of a scope. So the approach for adaptive life cycle has to be different. And it is not like the PMBOK is not saying that. PMBOK is definitely supporting it in a PMBOK Guide 6th edition. It is clearly saying that in adaptive life cycle, you have to do rather than may. You end up doing progressive elaboration of scope. You may have a high level requirement in the beginning, but you discover more details as you go forward, rather than you have a detailed scope in the beginning. Rather than doing early baselining of a scope, the baselining, which is many of us as a project manager are like, I would say, too much focused on that we need to get the things baseline. So rather than getting things baseline early in a project schedule, the agile based scope management is about continuous discovery of a scope. The scope is emerging, it is not frozen. And this is what PMBOK observes, PMBOK recommends that in adaptive life cycle, you need to do a continuous discovery of scope. You need to establish process to change so that change can be done frequently and easily rather than following a plan. So the scope management will say that how you can create a process so change can be done early and often rather than focusing on create a process so that people end up following the plan and you can predict the requirement in the beginning. In adaptive life cycle, we need to establish a smooth way of doing changes in our scope, in our action, in our planning. In predictive life cycle, we have a big work and we usually decompose the work in the form of work breakdown structure, and we many times end up decomposing it on the basis of phases and tasks. And only towards the end, final integration happens and we see the deliverable. In case we are following adaptive life cycle, we have to disaggregate the work rather than decomposed. We have to disaggregate the work in such a way that even the small work produces value. So if you have to cook the whole meal and you are making a recipe for the whole meal, you better deliver the soup recipe first, the bread recipe later, and rice recipe later. So it's more about that you are disaggregating the work, but each work completion produces something valuable, something deliverable, so your stakeholder can provide you a feedback and stakeholder can even make use of it. So it focuses on disaggregation of work in the form that even the small piece produces value. This is something in a more project management term, the work breakdown structure should not be based on decomposition of a work, or I would say the continuous work breakdown structure will keep emerging. There is no, you can't make a work breakdown structure in the beginning, and you disaggregate the work on the basis of requirements. Big requirement get disaggregated into small requirement, and you do the small requirement first or as per your prioritization, and then you showcase, you make that use, you share it with the stakeholder, they look at it, they consume it, and they provide feedback to you, and this is how you move forward. We have a process called validate scope. In case of adaptive life cycle, we do a frequent validations. In case of predictive life cycle, we end up doing late validation, phase and based validation. So frequent validation, maybe in a week's time, 2 weeks to 3 weeks, is a frequent validation we have seen in various adaptive life cycle approaches. And we deliver value by way of a backlog rather than we deliver a value based on specification. What does it mean? So when we talk about predictive life cycle, we have a detailed specification made in the beginning, our scope document, statement of work, whatever you say, an elaboration of it, and then we have a scope baseline, which has scope, work breakdown structure, and WBS dictionary, and we try to do things as per that. In adaptive life cycle, you may not have a scope statement, and you are not expected to usually have a scope statement, work breakdown structure, and work breakdown dictionary, because you can't make it in that particular way. You usually keep a running list of backlog items. So these are the things which you want to do, and you pick a few items for a shorter duration, say next 1 month or 1 week, I want to do these things, and only those items get further analyzed, decomposed, disaggregated, and then you deliver them, and you keep moving from one time duration to another time duration. So we deliver value, we deliver increment of our product, and we keep a running list of our list in the form of backlog rather than a detailed scope baseline. And it is not like this is how Agile works. This is how we have seen Agile working, and this is how PMBOK Guide 6th edition also see that many practitioners using Agile in a project management context. Project schedule management. I would say that the management schedule management changes drastically or I would say that even scope management also changes very drastically when we get into adaptive life cycle. The schedule management in our predictive life cycle was create a detailed project schedule in the beginning, have a milestone, predict those dates of those milestones, and create a clear scope idea for those particular milestones. These things won't work in adaptive life cycle because we believe in responding to change. We measure deliverables rather than measuring the detailed task. Now, if I'm using a predictive life cycle, I will create a complete project schedule. At the end, the deliverable will come. And in between, I have a lot of tasks. They are not producing something which is directly evaluatable. They are producing some engineering drawing, some document, some test result, something. And at the end, work will finish. So I usually measure my completion or my project tracking based on how much percentage, which all tasks are completed. So this is how I measure my predictive life cycle. Whereas in adaptive life cycle, we don't have this plan. We don't see that clear list of things, and finally, if these things get delivered, finally the deliverable will come. So we don't have this plan in detail. So we can't measure it like this. The only way or the recommended way to measure the progress is by looking at how much value we are delivering. So how was the soup? How was the roll? How was the rice? So in between, we measure what all deliverables has been delivered and how the customer responded to those deliverables. So we don't measure things based on percentage completion. The schedule variances are not based on percentage completion, but they are measured based on what has been delivered as per our overall value delivery. Planning is regular rather than planning is phased wise. This is something we spoke about. Now, there are two more things which are specifically mentioned, on-demand scheduling and pull scheduling. So in agile-based approach, you may have frequent change of schedule. So you may have some areas where your schedule may get modified even in a week's time or even in a day time. So based on some events, your schedules may change. So it is very much that the system of scheduling has to be such so that it can adapt those changes rather than you have a very predictive scheduling. Pull scheduling rather than push scheduling. Now this is also an interesting stuff. In predictive life cycle, since I know what has to be delivered as a project manager, I can make a detailed plan and I can tell everybody do this, do this, do this, do this. So I can push the schedule to my team members. In predictive life cycle, since I don't know it as a project manager, because things will emerge, so I can't push it. And if I start pushing it on a daily basis, then I will become a bottleneck because things are changing so frequently. So the approach which the adaptive life cycle takes is create an environment where work becomes visible, the changes becomes visible, so that people can pick up the work and people know what they are expected to do when they see such kind of work items in the backlog. So it is more about creating a system where work can be pulled by the self-organizing team. So as a manager, I am more concerned about, do I have a system which is showing the work to the people and which is triggering some action so that people can pull the work and they get started. So it believes in pull-based scheduling rather than push-based scheduling. I understand that I am touching of various terms, but again, it's a small webinar. Everything what I am speaking here may require a detailed discussion, and for that, definitely you can explore PMBOK 6th edition and the additional learning material to get things further. Final point for project scheduling as well as for other planning things. In adaptive life cycle, also you may need to make a little bit long-term plan. You may need to tell what are you doing in next 1 year, 6 months and something. But the idea of these planning is more about showing an intent, not a commitment. So when the adaptive life cycle project manager says that we are intending to deliver something, deliver these 5 features by the end of a year, it makes it clear to the stakeholder that it's an intent which may get changed as we discover something new. It is not a commitment. Many times, I won't say that people should consider it in that particular way, but in predictive life cycle, when things are quite predictable, and that time project manager says that we are planning to deliver these things. stakeholder will feel that the project manager is telling that these things will get delivered by the end of year, and that's the commitment which is coming from project manager. So in adaptive life cycle, we need to make it very, very clear that whatever long-term planning we are doing is primarily an intent. The detailed planning and commitment only come for short durations. We may have a committed plan, which is like everybody is focusing to deliver that with more certainty for a shorter duration, say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maximum 1 month, rather than more than that. So this is how we can see a difference of approach between schedule management. Cost management, so process which is primarily involving planning, estimating, funding the cost. So interesting, and now I think you got a feeling of it. The rest of the content will go similarly. Rather than doing detailed cost estimation, the adaptive life cycle will run with lightweight estimation. So there will be more errors in cost management. And that's the expected behavior, because since things are so frequently changing, it promotes adjustable high-level forecast, which is based on lightweight estimation. Rather than in a predictive life cycle, you have a stringent, detailed estimation process which enforces that people will adhere to what they have estimated in the beginning of the project. So this is not happening in adaptive life cycle. It can't happen because this is how the project is getting done. So you do short-term detailing rather than long-term detailing. And your overall focus in adaptive life cycle is adhering to value. Are we delivering something? Are we achieving the business result? Are we helping the organization earn money? That is the focus of budgeting and money spending in adaptive life cycle. Whereas in a predictive life cycle, our focus is, are we doing the project in a given cost? So when I'm doing a new recipe development, I may least bothered about how much money I end up spending, or I would say less bothered about, rather than least, less bothered about how much money I am spending in developing that recipe. I may be more concerned about, am I getting that winning recipe which will run for next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years and will get customer, X million customer to eat? That is my focus area. So the focus for even budgeting is also focused on, are we getting value rather than are we controlling our cost? So budget for value, budget rather than scope, and we focus on accepting the changes because we need to get that winning recipe rather than just spend some money and get some recipe which nobody will buy. So the intent is very different when we deal with adaptive life cycle based projects. And I'm not saying predictive is good or adaptive is good. I'm again stressing on, we need to see what is needed in a given context. And then we apply that. That is what PMBOK is saying, and that is what we have been doing as a project managers. Quality management. So I would say that many of the adaptive life cycle quality management practices I see is also getting adapted in predictive life cycle. So rather than doing quality check towards the end, we need to do frequently. Rather than doing lesson learned towards the end, we need to do frequently in a regular retrospectives, and that is something, a practice I see is widely accepted now. We need to do a frequent deliveries, frequent scope validation, frequent customer reviews, rather than big batch size. A lot of things gets done and then only we go to the customer. Since we keep our work in progress less, we also detect our issues early because we are showing our deliverables. In case of a predictive life cycle, if really something goes wrong, ideally the probability of going wrong is less because you know the area well. But if something goes wrong, you may detect it late because you might have processed many phases by the time you detect, oh, this was wrong. So because the batch size is high. So less things remains in progress. You keep delivering things frequently in case of adaptive life cycle. And primarily the measurement of quality is, are we delivering frequently and people can see what they are getting rather than just producing a quality report. In a predictive life cycle, quality means, do we have a quality report in this month and what the report is showing in a trend? That is what we look at quality. Whereas in adaptive life cycle, how was the previous deliverable from behaved or worked out from a customer perspective? Did they like it? Was it stable? Etc. etc. So we are primarily focusing on what feedback, what learning we got on our previous deliverable increment. So it focused on what we are producing. Project resource management. This is a new thing in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So project human resource management has become project resource management, which takes human as well as non-human resources. And there is the debate between agile people and project management people that people should not be called resource. They are just people. So I'm not getting into the intellectual debates that it is A or B, but here we are primarily talking about how an approach of managing team or working with people is different in adaptive life cycle. And what PMBOK is accepting that yes, when you are working in adaptive life cycle, you need to have a different approach to work with people. And that is what it says. Focus on individual and interaction rather than very defined roles, very defined processes. Create a team structure which promotes collaboration rather than a team structure which make clear boundaries and division of work. A clear division of work is not supportive in creating a collaborative and self-organizing team. Because things are changing so fast, you cannot have very clear, different, demarked work area. People will have their own skills. We are not saying that there will be no specialized skills, but it also promotes that we have generalized specialists. People can do multiple work because things are too much interlinked. So rather than running a relay race where people are specialized in doing their work, we believe in the human resource approach or a people management approach where we have a structure which is collaborative. People can talk to each other. They have a flexibility in their work assignment. They can help each other and they have individual as well as a shared accountability. Whereas in a predictive life cycle, we focus on clear structure, clear role, clear KPIs, specialization in skills, and individual accountability so that individuals can get punished and individuals can get rewarded on the basis of what they are doing. This approach is good and you really have a clear division of work. But in adaptive life cycle, where the clear division of work is not there, this approach is very harmful. You don't create a collaborative culture. Now, I keep giving an example, which is like a bad example, but that is what adaptive life cycle fits like good to me. So if you are a 5 guys and you want to rob a bank, so you are a robbery team and you might be doing different job, but you only get rewarded when the robbery gets successful. And if the robbery is not successful, everybody fails. You can't say that I did my work, give me money. There is no money. From where we will give you money? So, and the robbery team going for a robbery, they will help each other. And if somebody fails, they will definitely figure it out how we can still rob the bank without making an excuse at the end, because there is nobody to make an excuse. They are the one who will lose it. So the fast collaborative team which can make things happen is something which has a shared accountability, because they only win when the team wins. Nobody can win alone. If they don't get it, they don't get it. So that is, I know it's a bad metaphor, but it helps me to explain when I have been using it. But this is like kind of an approach we need to take in order to develop teams in adaptive life cycle. Communication management, I'm going a little fast, so not talking about the definition of communication management and all. As you have realized by now, the adaptive life cycle is a different word. So in a different word, we need a different type of communication. So we need a more real-time communication rather than at the end of the week, we will get a variance report and then we will decide what do we do next. Things will be like doomed if we wait for a report for end of a week. So we need to create a structure. As a project manager, you need to create something where we have a face-to-face communication. Things are real-time communicated. As event happens, people come to know. A lot of informal channels, and you may put transparency in such a way that you may have a boards which we call information radiators, which exhibits things as they happen. So you are not relying on a weekly, monthly reports coming from a one person and everybody coming to know what is happening. So including your team members, including your stakeholders, everybody should have a mechanism to know what is happening live. So you can think like the way stock exchange changes and you get a communication on a real-time basis, whatever is happening in your project, there should be a stock exchange kind of an indicator. In a way, you need to create that so people know what is happening. If they don't know what is happening, they won't be able to respond to it, and we will lose opportunity to create a better product or opportunity to win a market. So communication is real time. Communication is more based on what we are delivering. It's more face to face and less focusing on some status report coming at the end. And this is needed in order to make rest of the things work. And that is what PMBOK Guide 6th edition is also appreciating, that yeah, communication management has to change as we go in adaptive life cycle. Risk management. Now, the overall approach for risk management remains the same. The only difference is, since we don't know things in advance, we can't identify, plan, and do everything related to risk in advance. We need to do something all the time. We need to take care of risks all the time. And that is why the way the adaptive life cycle works in a small cycles, producing incremental deliverables, continuous engagement, it takes care of risk organically. Means that the process itself has been designed in such a way by way of frequent reviews, frequent retrospectives, real-time communication, real-time exposing the risk, frequent reprioritization of a work, expecting that there will be many unknown, because the process itself is designed for discovering unknowns, because we are only going small incremental. These things takes care of risks on its own. We may not have a very dedicated meeting where we sit and talk about risk. Whenever we are doing continuous planning, continuous retrospective, continuous review of our product, we keep discovering and mitigating and taking care of risk on an ongoing basis. You may still have a way to record the risk. You may still have a way to prioritize the risk. You may still have a way to respond to the risk. But it happens many times as a part of the process, not as a separate activity. And it is designed, the processes are designed in a way which takes care of these risks on its own. Procurement management. When we are working with the vendors, when we are working with someone, or we are becoming a vendor to someone. So again, there is an Agile manifesto statement which talks about that we need to focus more on collaboration rather than contract negotiation. Create a procurement model where the vendor and customer shares the risk, rather than create a procurement model where all risk is expected to be taken care by the vendor, and we have a stringent agreement in contract. So those kind of things won't work when we are doing frequent changes, because vendor will say, this is not what we have agreed on. Now you have a different requirement. How can I take care of this risk? So we need to come up with a procurement model where risks are shared, rather than having a specific contract statement of work-based agreement. Many times in Agile-based contract, you have a master service agreement which gives an overall approach, overall understanding of the longer duration, and we create a detailed agreement for shorter duration inside it. So it's like a bigger understanding or a bigger commitment for a 1 year or something, and in between you have a monthly or maybe a 3 monthly detailed agreement which are coming for a given task. It's more focused on delivering value rather than agreement on doing some particular changes. It's more flexible for changes rather than stringent change management, and monitoring is primarily based on deliverables and the value delivery, rather than monitoring is done based on reports. So the essence of procurement is that we need to treat vendor as a part of a project delivery team, and they need to be aligned with the customer goals rather than they having separate defined goals as per their agreement or as per their contract. If you don't achieve that, it will be difficult to keep them agile or keep them adaptive along with the project teams. So approach for procurement also needs to be changed when we are going with adaptive lifecycle. And finally, how do we deal with the stakeholders? So rather than managing stakeholders, the agile-based approach talks about engaging stakeholders. So we need to move towards engagement. How do we do that? Regular meetings, face-to-face interaction, joint problem solving, aggressive transparency. People should know, the stakeholders should know what is going inside, and make them attend your project meetings. People should be able to talk. The team members should be able to talk to the stakeholder rather than they have to go with 3 layers. They write an email to project manager write an email to account manager, and finally account manager sends an email to the stakeholder, and stakeholder reply to him, and information get lost in between. So in agile-based approaches, if you have these layers and you are trying to become adaptive and change, you may fail. So the idea here is that when we have an adaptive approach, changes are so fast. If there is a delay in communication between stakeholder and project team, the delay could be very disastrous, because team may go to a different direction and finally they discover that they went to a wrong direction. So we need to promote continuous engagement, continuous interaction based on something which is real, rather than document, rather than report, rather than summary of a report, rather than cooked report and polished data presented by project manager. It has to be very, very interactive engagement with stakeholders. So that is the only thing which can bring the stakeholder thing. So finally, the agile or adaptive life cycle primarily got triggered from something called Agile Manifesto. So you can explore this Agile Manifesto. It has only 4 statements, and it's primarily focused on value, which focuses on individual and interaction, working software, customer collaboration, and responding to change. I'm not spending much time here because I understand many of you might be aware. If you are not, you can just search on YouTube. We have many videos explaining these Agile Manifesto statements. So is Agile only for software? I keep getting this question. So that by now you might have understood that adaptive life cycle is for anyone. Maybe Agile Manifesto was primarily written for doing software development, but the way PMBOK Guide 6th edition looks at adaptive life cycle, it is for the project context where things are changing fast. They are change driven. So you need an adaptive life cycle. For future learning, if you want to explore a small online program, we do have Agile Principles and Mindset. It's an online program. You can explore, visit eisenbridge.com. You can enroll to it. You will get a detailed idea about what is Agile and how it aligns with project management and all those knowledge area. Whatever I spoke here is more elaborated in that particular program. And we do have some upcoming online sessions on Agile. So upcoming one is something called Disciplined Agile Delivery, which is a hybrid approach of Agile, where we mix project management and Agile in order to deliver something. So this is a session. We also have another approach of agility, which is called Kanban. And we are running a Kanban session on 28th Feb. You can find more details on our website. If you want to get certification on some Agile-based approach, these are the 2 popular certificates, Certified Scrum Master, and PMI has a PMI ACP. So you may explore any of these 2. If you are living in India, doing Certified Scrum Master program first makes perfect sense, because you get some sense of Scrum and Agile to start with, and later on you can do PMI ACP or PMP as it suits you. So this is it. Yeah, finally, I know I have overshooted my time, so I can take some questions here. I just have 5 minutes, but I think this is an exception. This time I extend this webinar for 5 minutes. So I will finish it by 9:05. Depending upon the number of questions, I still allocate 10 minutes to the questions. Now the question is that, do we have as an Eisenbridge PMBOK 6 based online program? The answer is yes. We have launched the beta product, which has 80% of the content. All the videos are new. We are not reusing any of our PMBOK 5 video. It's completely revamped program, and it takes care of the essence of PMBOK Guide 6th edition in totality. And if somebody is exploring doing PMP, they can do it. Now, there was an example question. Can we share a real life example project using Agile? If I say you are working in software industry, mobile industry, the question would be reverse. Is there any mobile app based project not using Agile? The that if you are working in an environment where customer behavior is changing every week, you end up doing agile, knowingly, unknowingly, properly, or forcefully. It's very difficult to go predictive. You can't make a list of features and then launch a website or launch an app after 6 months. You will be in a bad shape. So all the new developments are primarily has to take care of what is happening around. And I don't see myself, like when I was working as a project manager and right now also, we had any option not to be adaptive to the customer changes. So it was always difficult to be a predictive life cycle. Now we can understand this. The old software development or old way of doing project management was that there was something in place. Like I started my development career with developing ERP kind of products. So enterprise resource planning, things were stable. There was manual process in place and organization just wanted to convert the manual process into a computer-based process. But the process was stable. Everything was there. So it was little bit easier to make a predictive plan because everything is clear. There was manual reports and all. Now, when we do a software development, there is no process clarity. There is just an idea. The process will emerge as software will emerge. The process will change as software will change. And that is why we can't apply the old way of doing to a new world where there is no clear requirement given. So it is something all the time. Now, I see one question related to all of you, estimation. So many of us, we think, oh, cost has to be decided in the beginning. How can we change the cost earlier? See, first, you may be working in a context where people are still believing in predictive life cycle, and you might be working in a context where cost is still predicted. But think of, you want to build a house. Can you freeze the budget for your house in the beginning? And even if you freeze it, can you meet it? Now, maybe you put a lot of contingency into it, then you can definitely meet it. But freezing the budget is not necessarily equals to estimation. Whatever you estimate, and you may put a lot of contingency on top of it, you may be able to achieve it. But if you don't do so much mitigation, there is a big probability that your estimation will go wrong. Now, does it make sense to start a house without doing an estimation? The answer is no. You need to have some idea. You may go 30%, 40% wrong, but you need to know where you are heading towards. So you need to do some level of estimation, which helps you to make a decision about the number of floors, about the type of material you want to use. Some level of decisions has to be made based on what you are estimating. But remaining things will emerge as you go forward. This is just an example of house. The things may change when you are working an app. The things may change when you are working on a machine. The things may change when you are working on a road. And the variability may change and predictability may also vary. When you have more information, your errors will be less. So it could be an extreme end where you have a 200% variance is acceptable because it's a new concept. And it may be in a one end, you just expect 20% variances. So we just need to see the area where we are working in. So lightweight estimation work in this same thing. Okay, so another question about PMI ACP and so is the PMI ACP is going to be discontinued and how relevant the PMI ACP remains with the PMBOK 6th edition. So PMI ACP is primarily meant for practitioners, so people who are not yet having project management experience can do PMI ACP. Tester can do PMI ACP, developer can do PMI ACP, business analyst can do a PMI ACP, product owner can do a PMI ACP, Scrum Master can do a PMI ACP. In order to do a PMP, you need to be leading and directing project for minimum 3 years. So PMI ACP is more detailed agile-based program for practitioners. With PMBOK Guide 6th edition, you need to have that knowledge when you are doing PMP as well. Maybe the content and examination will not be focusing on that much in the content of PMI ACP. But now, the way I see, it's my personal opinion, PMP includes the agile flavor of PMI ACP. So if you have done PMP with PMBOK Guide 6th edition and you have done CSM and other stuff, you have already understood agile well. This is what I see based on Agile Practice Guide and PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So the question is Webinars and all, you will get the PDUs related request you will get separately. If somebody is delivering a workshop on PMP now, my recommendation is that they should go directly with PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Legally, you can't refer PMBOK Guide 5th edition after 25th March. That is what the PMI says. You should not be quoting, if you are a registered education provider, anything from PMBOK Guide 5th edition. It's gone. So if you are teaching project management, if you are a PMI registered education provider, you don't have option to teach the previous standard after 25th March. You can teach it, but it won't be qualified for PDUs as per PMI. So you need to retire all those activities. Now, there are various questions related to certification, so I'm not taking them because I please understand that the idea of this webinar was just to give an overview, and I have shared the previous the future learning options which you can use, and you can definitely make good use of our YouTube channel. So if you have any question related to Agile, just search on our YouTube. There is a high probability that you may get some video explaining it. But as of now, the detailed question on Agile was not an intent of this particular webinar. So yeah, so there are other things, there are other webinars we will introduce and do take these questions later. Next time, I think I'm doing another webinar in mid-Feb, and that time I would be addressing issues related to emotional intelligence. So thank you very much for attending this session, and hope to see some of you at least in my next webinar in Feb. It's already live. You can go and register for it. Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining.